Breaking news! Things are hectic behind the scenes, and a lot of information is coming into our center all the time. We know that the Detroit Lions will only play again next week, and I confess that I already miss seeing our Lions on the field. In the last few hours, a controversial news story came out about one of our players, and we also have some sad news to share with you. Before we continue, make sure you've already hit the like button if you love the Detroit Lions with all your heart. Let's start by talking about something that's on everyone's mind. Sam LaPorta's slow start in 2024. I know it's hard to ignore that his numbers have dropped. Last year, he averaged 52.3 yards per game and scored 10 touchdowns. So far this season, in 4 games, he's only managing 36.8 yards per game and hasn't even reached the end zone yet. Now, you might be wondering, has anything changed? Well, according to the coaches, nothing is really different with LaPorta. He's still playing the same role, and defenses aren't doing anything new to stop him. Honestly, after watching the tape, I agree. His usage is nearly identical to last year. Pro Football Focus shows that 40.2% of his snaps last season were spent as a run blocker, and this year, that's only slightly up to 42.5%. That small difference doesn't explain why his production has dropped. Here's my take. LaPorta's lack of early season success is more about the offense as a whole. It feels like they've gotten off to a slow start. Jared Goff has more control over the offense now, something that offensive coordinator Ben Johnson has been pushing since last year. Goff himself admitted that 2023 was the year he gained more command of the offense than ever before in his career. Remember when Coach Dan Campbell said Goff is a better quarterback here than he ever was in LA? He wasn't joking. Goff is more mentally sharp, and this offense is built around him in a way that it never was in Los Angeles. I think we're just waiting for all the pieces to click. Once the Lions hit their stride, I have no doubt LaPorta will get his, and that end zone drought will end soon. Speaking of players making an impact, what about Coyote Awosika's performance at left guard against Seattle? He looked solid, didn't he? But let's not get too excited just yet. As good as Awosika was, I don't see the Lions benching Graham Glasgow after just 1 game. Keep in mind that Seattle's defensive line was really banged up, and Glasgow has been the presumed starter all offseason, holding down the spot through camp. 1 game probably isn't enough to change that, especially with Glasgow still playing at a high level. Now, shifting gears a bit to the schedule ahead, it's brutal. With upcoming road games against Dallas and Minnesota, it's a tough stretch. The Titans game feels like a winnable one, but those Cowboys and Vikings matchups, that's going to be the real test. And don't forget, after that, we have to deal with Green Bay at Lambeau. This could easily be the hardest part of the season. But here's the thing. Detroit could catch a break against Dallas. With DeMarcus Lawrence on injured reserve and Micah Parsons' status up in the air, that defense isn't the same. Detroit has struggled against Dallas in recent years, but if Parsons doesn't play, the Lions' offense might finally have a chance to hang 30 points on them and snag that first win over the Cowboys since 2013. How sweet would that be? The Vikings, though, that's a different story. To me, they're one of the most well-rounded teams in the league. Brian Flores has their defense playing at an elite level, and their offensive weapons could pose some serious challenges for Detroit's secondary, especially if TJ Hawkinson is back, as expected. They've already beaten some tough teams like the 49ers and Packers, and while I think the Lions can hang with anyone, Minnesota will be a real challenge. There's also an interesting development with Christian Mahogany. He could return to practice soon, but don't expect to see him in the lineup immediately. He's still on the non-football injury list, and it'll take time to ramp him up. When he's ready, though, it's going to be interesting to see how Detroit handles the offensive line. There's a chance Michael Nisi could be in trouble, especially if Frank Ragnow is still sidelined, but I think they keep 10 offensive linemen for now. As for Ifeatu Melifonwu, I love the idea of using him as an extra defender in nickel or dime packages. That might be the best way to get the top 11 defenders on the field, especially with Derek Barnes out. But last week, I expected more nickel looks, and that didn't happen as much as I thought. It seems like Detroit still trusts its base defense, even without Barnes, so we'll see how that unfolds. All right, Lions fans, what do you think? Is LaPorta's slow start just a blip on the radar? Can Goff and the offense find their rhythm soon? And what are your thoughts on Coyote Awosika versus Graham Glasgow? Let me know in the comments below. Today, we've got some bittersweet news to share, one that reaches deep into the heart of one pride. Greg Landry, a true Detroit Lions legend, has passed away at the age of 77. The Lions announced this on social media Friday night, and it's a loss that brings back so many memories for those who've been following this team for decades. Landry wasn't just any player. He was a first-round pick for the Lions back in 1968, and he quickly became a cornerstone of the team. He played 11 seasons in Detroit, and while his 40-41-3 record as a starting quarterback might seem like just numbers on a page, Landry was much more than stats. He was the definition of grit and determination, the kind of player that Lions fans could get behind, someone who always left it all on the field. Whether you watched him live back then or you've heard the stories, his impact is undeniable. Now let's talk about what made Landry special on the field. He was a dual-threat quarterback before that was even a thing. His passing numbers? Solid. He still ranks 5th among Lions quarterbacks in passing yards and 4th in touchdowns. But what made him stand out was his ability to run. Over his 11 seasons, Landry racked up 2,502 rushing yards. That's right. He's still the leading rusher among all Detroit Lions quarterbacks in franchise history. That's over 800 yards more than the legendary Bobby Lane, and even ahead of Matthew Stafford in rushing touchdowns, 19 to Stafford's 14. For those of you who've been watching the Lions for years, you know how rare it is to see a quarterback who can move like that. Landry was a game changer in more ways than one, but his connection to the Lions didn't stop when his playing days were over. Landry went on to have a solid coaching career, starting as a quarterback's coach for the Chicago Bears before eventually coming back home to Detroit in the mid-90s. And here's where it gets really interesting. He played a key role in guiding Scott Mitchell during that explosive 1995 season. Lions fans, you remember that year? The second-best offense in the league, Mitchell throwing for over 4,300 yards and 32 touchdowns, Barry Sanders doing his thing, and the team making it to the wild card round. Landry had a big hand in shaping that success, and it's one of the reasons his legacy with the Lions is so rich, even beyond his playing career. This news of Landry's passing hits hard, not just because we've lost one of the greats, but because it reminds us of how connected we all are to this team's history. It's not just about the wins and losses, it's about the players who've worn that Lions jersey with pride, who've shaped this team's identity, and who've given us moments we'll never forget. So now, Lions fans, we look back on Greg Landry's career and remember all that he gave to this franchise. He wasn't just standout quarterback, he was part of the soul of Detroit football. From his early days as a first-round pick to his years as a coach, Landry's connection to the Lions ran deep. His ability to lead, whether by throwing the ball or taking off on a run, showed his versatility and determination, traits that still define what it means to be a Lion. Landry was more than just stats. He was the kind of player who embodied the grit and toughness of this team. Even after his playing days, Landry's legacy grew as he returned to Detroit as a coach. He helped guide Scott Mitchell through one of the best seasons in Lions history, proving once again that his impact on this team extended beyond his time on the field. Whether he was under center or on the sidelines, Landry's influence was undeniable. His love for the Lions and his passion for the game stayed with him throughout his career, leaving a lasting mark on this franchise and the fans. As we send our thoughts and condolences to the Landry family, it's also a time to reflect on how much he meant to us as fans. He was more than just a player. He was a part of our team's identity, and his legacy will always be a part of Lions history. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your most memorable Greg Landry moment? Was it a game, a story you've heard, or just what he represents to this team? Drop it in the comments below, and let's honor this Lions legend together.